Sunjin stood alone in the hospital garden, his mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. He tried to make sense of everything that was happening. Was he about to lose his wife and their baby? How had things spiraled to the point where he might have to choose between saving one life and letting go of another? That was never a choice he wanted to make, nor one he ever imagined facing. As he stood there, lost in thought, his mother approached him quietly. She gently took his hand and, sensing the weight on his shoulders, urged him not to think too much and to try and relax. But Sunjin, overwhelmed with emotion, questioned how he was supposed to relax while his wife was inside, fighting for her life. His mother responded with quiet hope. She expressed her faith that Minsu and the baby would be okay, reminding him of how strong Minsu was and how she had no doubt that she would get through this. She moved closer and, after a brief pause, told him that if it did come to a moment where a choice had to be made, he must make a wise decision. Sunjin looked at her in surprise, not fully understanding what she meant. Keeping her gaze steady, she continued, saying that the continuation of their family lineage was more important. Sunjin, emotionally drained and not in the right state of mind to argue, chose to excuse himself, stating he needed to go back inside. Inside the hospital, the atmosphere was tense. Everyone paced anxiously, praying and hoping for good news. Just then, Minsu's father, who had just arrived in Seoul, rushed into the hospital, concern etched deeply on his face. He went straight to his wife, confusion and fear in his eyes. He demanded to know what was happening, having believed the pregnancy had been progressing smoothly. He couldn't understand how things had suddenly taken such a drastic turn. Minsu's mother, overwhelmed with emotion, broke into tears and threw herself into his arms. She admitted that she was just as shocked as he was. She expressed guilt for not being present earlier in the pregnancy, convinced that if she had been there, she might have ensured everything was okay. Her husband held her hands tightly, telling her to stay strong and not to lose hope. He reminded her that their daughter was a fighter, resilient and determined. He reassured her that soon they would be with both Minsu and their grandchild. Comforted by his words, Minsu's mother managed a faint smile as he embraced her once again, doing his best to shield her from despair. He then noticed Sunjin standing alone in a corner of the waiting area, looking utterly defeated and weighed down by stress. He approached him, and after a brief greeting told him firmly to stay strong. He reminded him that he was soon to be a father, and that now was the time to show strength, not weakness. Sunjin, clearly broken, replied that he only hoped he would become a father, depending on how things unfolded. Perplexed, Minsu's father asked what the midwife had said. Sunjin, almost numb, revealed that they had been told if the situation worsened, he might be forced to choose between saving Minsu or the baby. The words hit Minsu's father like a bolt of lightning. He had feared things were bad, but not to that extent. He stepped closer and looked Sunjin in the eyes. With quiet intensity, he told him that if it came to that point, Minsu's life should be the one saved. She was his wife, his partner, and they could always try for another child in the future. Sunjin stood silent for a moment before confessing that he didn't think he could ever put Minsu through another pregnancy again. He admitted that watching her suffer this time had been unbearable, and that he loved her too deeply to ever allow her to endure such pain again. Minsu's father looked at him with empathy. It was clear that his son-in-law was not only exhausted, but also deeply traumatized. He placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder and told him that as a man, only he could know the right decision to make for his wife and his family. He promised not to interfere in that decision. At that moment, the midwife appeared. Without hesitation, they all rushed toward her, bracing for whatever news she had to deliver.